All right, good evening. Welcome, everyone. Looking forward to an exciting 4-week journey as we try and tackle some common challenges parenting throws our way. In addition, some of the extra challenges that face us during these times where we are probably all faced with situations we never have had before, spending a lot more time at home with our family, with our children, and God willing, through tonight's and the next 3 weeks classes, we can walk away with practical and realistic tips. As you could see clearly on the screen in front of you, the goal that I have in all the times that I'm teaching parents, teachers, anyone, is that I want the lessons to be practical. I want them to be realistic, which means they're ideas that you can understand. I like to cut out all the technical stuff, the scientific things, only do it as a minimum and leave it to things that are ideas and tools and tips that are practical, realistic, and that you can implement tonight or tomorrow, right away. And the good thing is that it's not all or nothing. This is not a science idea that has to be implemented fully. It's something that can be implemented a little bit, and once we'll do well, the next time we'll have a setback and we can keep trying until we master it more and more times. So I think for context, it's important to understand where I fell in with this parenting approach and this teaching approach. So thank God I've been able to be involved with education of children of all different ages for over 10 years now. And I'm blessed with my 4 boys who definitely keep me busy, especially now that they're all home all day. And it was as they were growing up, and I was realizing, me and my wife in conversations, we were realizing that we wanted more structure in the home. Things were just not the way we wanted it to be, whether it was bedtime, mealtime, and we realized there has to be another angle that we can take, another method that we can implement into our own home that makes us feel that we are connecting with our children, helping them succeed emotionally, as well as the day-to-day life at home. So this is when I stumbled on conscious discipline, which is a method out there, very popular one. There were some additions to it that I used with my CBT training, my cognitive behavioral therapy training, and as well as many other aspects, Hasidic thought, philosophy, and things, and studies like that I put together a method that is really very, very realistic so that we can appreciate how we can connect with our children. And it's important to do so because there would be times where I put my boys to bed and I'd come back thinking, yeah, I got the goal accomplished. They're sleeping now. But is that really the way I want to parent? Is that really the connection, that relationship that I want to have? It felt like World War III every night in the bedroom and so on and so forth. So putting this together, I realized, hey, it works. And I started implementing it at the school that I'm in. And I started implementing it when talking to other parents and friends. And what I saw was that it was very successful in that people were able to apply these tools instantly. And that is really what parents are looking for when it comes to parenting. What can I apply instantly? What can I do to make it better? So the first thing I realized, the first really big idea, the light bulb that went off in my head was that we're not here to control the kids. That was the moment that I had a paradigm shift. We're not here to control the kids. We're not going to be able to control our homes 100% of the time exactly the way we want. It's just not going to happen. And I think about society in that sense. You know, you imagine you try to police the entire country or the entire city, the entire state in one way. It wouldn't work. Naturally, societies and towns depend on people working together with a common goal to keep it safe, to keep it a place, an environment where we can all get along, we can coexist and cooperate. Because we would never have enough law enforcement to go ahead and control everyone fully. We rely on cooperation of civilians so that we have a home, a neighborhood, a town, a country of law and order. And when there are issues, we have law enforcement to step in. And it's the same thing with our homes. We're not going to be able to control it. So if it's all about controlling our children, then we will fail. Each day we will think about ourselves as failing because we will never fully control our children. Why? Because they are independent thinkers. And when they're young, they're discovering a lot. And part of that discovery is to challenge, is to ask, and is to explore on their own. So we're not going to be able to control them. The only one who we can control is ourselves. We are in full control of ourselves. And that shift really gave me the insight to change the way I wanted to parent and the way I wanted to teach and interact with others as well. Because it said the power's in your hands. If I can find the strategies, the methods inside of me, then when I go and interact with my children, then I'm going to do it from a place of connection, where it's a nurturing place, a place of love and care, which it's always. Parents are always coming from love and care, but the question is, how is the child receiving it? And this approach really helped me with that. And it got me thinking as I noticed a Mishnah, a saying from our sages in Avot, and it's on the screen as well. Hu haya omer, he would say, Im ein ani li, which simply translates as, if I'm not for myself, who is for me? And there are multitudes of explanations of what those words mean, and they're all beautiful and fascinating. But the one that resonated with me the most was that one of the Hasidic masters explained, if I am not for myself, who is for me? I am the only one who is in full control of my emotions. I am the only one who can control my temperament, my natural instincts, and my responses. No one else. I am not for myself. Who is for me? Who am I allowing to control myself? Is it going to be the banker who was slow? Is it going to be the waitress at the restaurant who brought me cold food? Is it going to be my child who's having a tantrum in the middle of Walmart? It doesn't matter. None of them should be controlling me. The only person who should be controlling myself is me. And we have to recognize that we are the only ones who allow situations to control us. And if we choose to be on top of that, and if we choose to react in an appropriate manner, we will not feel that we're out of control. We will be in full control of ourselves, and we'll be able to handle the situation in an appropriate and realistic manner. And if you think about it, many times we use the expression, you were so rude, you made me angry. You are so late, you made me late for work. You are this, that, and the other, and you made me do such and such. And we can all fill in the blanks, and we've all used that expression so many times. And we stop and think about it 1 second. You made me? My 5-year-old, my 10-year-old, the banker who I don't know, anyone, they made me? No. You're choosing to allow that to get you angry. You're choosing to allow that to frustrate you. And we have to remember this wise teaching of our sages. If I'm not for myself, who is for me? No one is making you do anything. You are the one in full control of yourself. Once we have established the importance of that shift of mind and that groundbreaking approach, we can then move on to the next step, which is an important one. And that is, many times we hear parents instructing their children to do as I say, but not do as I do. Which in simple English means we expect our children to react to situations or to act in any given place in one way, but we're not modeling that behavior. We are allowing other people to make us angry, upset, frustrated, annoyed, but yet we don't want our kids to be doing that. So think about your typical scenario. One brother hits another brother. And we get upset. Why are you pushing your brother? If you want to turn on the bike, then ask him. But yet, 10 minutes before, you were on the phone, perhaps, to a company that was really bothering you because you had a product to return, and there you were, getting upset, getting angry. And then 10 minutes later, you're telling your child, that's not the way we talk. You need to talk calmly, you need to ask. So there's a big problem, there's a discrepancy. You're acting one way, but you're instructing your child to do it the other way. How can we expect our children to control their impulse, their reaction to any situation, if we are not demonstrating that? If we are saying things that show our children that other people control my emotion, then I'm just acting out of impulse, how is it possible for us to even expect our children not to follow what we're doing? And then suddenly we want them to do as we're saying. And it's interesting because we see a similar idea in the book of Genesis. Right at the beginning of the Torah, we have an incident, and I'll put it on the screen for those that want to follow. It says that after 130 years, yes, so Adam was created on the sixth day of creation. 130 years later, it says, Adam was intimate again with his wife and they had another child. And Rashi, the foremost commentator, and it's on the screen if you want to read it word for word, but I'll explain it. What happened? There was a man named Lemech. Lemech was very upset because his wives had chosen to stay away from him. They didn't want to have children with Lemech anymore because they felt that God was going to punish the descendants of Cain who had killed Abel. So they didn't want to have children. Now Lemech was upset because he said, this is a problem. It's too, and I'll quote it. Is it for you to be so strict concerning the decree of the omnipresent? You perform your commandments and he will do his. That's what Adam said. Adam said to Lemech's wives, he was upset. So they came to Adam as a judge, as a court. And Adam says, whoa, just because you, the wives, know that the future descendants might be wiped out is not a reason for you to abstain from giving birth. You have to do your part, God will do his. And at that moment, the wives turned to Adam and said, 1 second, what's been going on for 130 years? What have you been doing? You've been staying away from your wife. You know why? Because Cain killed Abel, Cain killed Hevel, and at that point you said, I don't need this anymore. So straight away, this verse tells us Adam said, yes, you're right. I can't be chastising you, rebuking you to have children when I did the same thing. And that is the meaning of this verse, that after 130 years, suddenly he goes and has another child with Chava. So what we see here is that right from the beginning of time, we have to be consistent to those who are in our care, to those who we are educating. In this case, Adam, as the first man, a great person, educating and being the leader and the spiritual guide, so to speak, for everybody else. He knew, or he was made aware that you cannot do as I say and not do as I do. And that's an important part that we have to always remember. So what happens? How come it is that when a situation arises in our home, we react in one way that we may later regret, we may later feel upset about? And the truth is, because as soon as something happens, we revert to an inner control system, which means we're growing up. And as we grow up, we are influenced by situations that happen to us. Something that happened and your first grade teacher reacted in one way, yelled at you, you're stupid, how could you say that? You grabbed something from a sibling and your mother said, that's not nice, that's how you behave, I take such good care of you. Each of these statements are putting data into your internal response system. And so automatically, when a situation arises years later, and you're a parent now, you will respond to your children in that same way because that is the only method you have available. And you might be kicking yourself and saying, did I just say that? Did I just complain to my child? Did I just scream at them? But yet, we're going to continuously respond in a natural way unless we take a step forward to change our internal programming. We can only do that if we do not allow those switches to get turned on in any given situation. And this is really a core principle in Chabad Hasidism. In fact, the word Chabad is an acronym of 3 Hebrew words, Chachma, Bina, and Das. And in short, without getting technical, as I told you at the onset, it means that Chabad focuses on the control that the mind has over the emotions. We need to allow our mind to step in and take control of any given situation. And if we do that, we will not allow the buttons to be pressed. Our natural internal system won't play. A new system will be created and we will respond accordingly. How do we reprogram? Something's going on, there's an incident, there's a fight going on, there's something that's really irksome to you. How do you respond differently? And this is the first step of our journey to change our relationship with our children, to change our connection with our children and make it a strong connection. And that is through a key component called composure. Composure is that moment where we feel that internal pressure. You may feel yourself getting angry. You may feel yourself breathing hard. You may feel your face getting red. Each of us in our own way. that is when we say composure. Composure says pause. Allow your mind to step in over here and assess the situation. Allow yourself to ask, what is going on? What is my goal? What is the right approach? What is hurtful and what is helpful in this situation? And when we compose ourselves, and very often with a good deep breath, that helps, because that allows us to close our mouths from talking and rather breathe in and let the brain control us now. And guess what? Just as a side, it's very good for our kids to watch us being composed, because this is what we want them to learn. We want them to do as I do. We want them to practice composure as well. And it works. It works. Thank God I've seen an improvement with my 2-year-old boy who, when he's upset, we remind him about breathing and he will take some deep breaths. Not every time, but it's a process that actually works, that actually happens. So many times we think, I'm the parent. There was a situation. I have to step in immediately. I have to react right now. I cannot let it go by for even a moment. And the truth is, not having an immediate response is okay, because we can come back to it and we can say, I was feeling upset. I was feeling confused. And now I know how I want to deal with it. It's better than having an immediate response that you will really regret later and will cause more damage. Again, anything that we do either strengthens our connection or pulls it apart. Now, we always can reignite the strength of our relationship with our children, but we don't want to alienate it, because then it just becomes harder to bring it back together in a beautiful way. So how are we able to give ourselves that moment of composure when it seems like we're very upset? What things can I tell myself? What is the focus in my mind? What is that mental exercise that I'm doing right now that will help me stay composed? And the answer is unconditional love, which means that we need to always think about what is best for our children in any situation. And it doesn't matter what they did, whether it was wrong or a little bit wrong or terribly wrong. We need to think about what is best for our child in any given situation. Now, this week, we're not going to talk about how to resolve conflict and how to step in and teach them how to resolve conflicts on their own. We'll do that in weeks to come, God willing. But tonight, I just want to bring to your attention that unconditional love is the step that tells us, I'm upset. No one else is making me upset. My child needs me. So if he failed at a test in school, that doesn't mean he doesn't deserve my love. It means he might need help with his math. He hit his brother. She ripped up a project, an artwork of another sibling. Each of these children need help in those specific areas. If we are giving them conditional love, which means as long as you're succeeding in school, then I love you, but as soon as you step out of line, I'm going to yell and shout, that's not real love. And then our connection is really weak. It's based on something, an external factor. Also, it will help us compose ourselves when we are deciding how to react. You tore up your brother's artwork. You ripped up your sister's project. So now you don't get supper. Now you don't get to have a bath, if they like baths, whatever it is. That's ridiculous. Those are not things that should be negotiable, because what that tells the child is I'm not loved for who I am. I'm loved as long as I'm acting within that box of control that my parents want me to have. So basic necessities should never be on the table, because they deserve that basic love. Education, teaching, guiding, modeling, or how we fix problems and conflicts that our children display. But to ever go and make our love to the child conditional, that's dangerous down the line, because when we want to educate them, when we want to teach them, we won't be able to, because they will subconsciously feel I'm not really loved. Now, this is not always happening in an outward external manner. Parents, and I've spoken to many, they're not outright saying I don't love you because X, Y, and Z, but there's this little bit of attention. The child picks up on it. I'm only getting praised when it's in a certain area, when I'm doing well in school. I'm only getting praised when I'm a help at home. These give subconscious signals to the child in regards to their love. So we need to be making sure that we're giving off messages of love while disciplining. And it doesn't mean we don't deal with conflict. And many people hear about positive parenting, connecting parenting. That means you ignore issues. Of course not. And we'll deal with all that. It means that the child has to feel loved. And in fact, we'll touch on it next week. A child can only learn when they feel connected to the person who's trying to teach them, to the educator, to the teacher, or the parent, the mother, or the father. So with that in mind, we have to remember our response is critical, because that tells the child what's going on. So we compose ourselves and we think, what is an appropriate response right here, right now? As we come closer to the end, because I want to end off with some practical exercises here tonight. As we move towards the end of the presentation part of it, I want to encourage you to think about what we spoke about before I read off the exercises. Number one, we said we're looking for practical tips. So I'm going to end off with practical ideas that you can do, methods and methodologies that work. The next thing we discussed, and very important, is that our emotions and our responses are fully ours. We don't want to be handing power to our children. You made me do this. In fact, that's very scary for a child if you think about it. A little 6-year-old thinking, wow, I'm in control of mom or dad. That's scary. They don't know what to do with such power. And they get lost. They get confused. And of course, they act out of line because they don't know what to do with it. The children need us to be in charge. So in everything we say and do, we need to be careful that we are staying in control of ourselves, not only because that way we can educate, but because otherwise we're putting the children through a very difficult challenge to control us. We don't want that. They don't know how to do it. That's why we're the parent and they're the child. They're leaning on us for guidance and support and not the other way around. We also spoke about going back a little bit to this idea of controlling. It's not about controlling. We're looking to connect with our children so that they can absolutely become a part of the learning process in a way that they feel good about themselves and that they can be a part of it and grow in a healthy way emotionally and every other aspect of it. And this all boils down to composure. Composure is the first step to anything we're going to do, because that's what we want our children to do. We want our children to be composed before they make decisions in life, before they have outbursts. We want them to be composed. So we stop, we take a deep breath, and we analyze the situation in a very clear and a very, very practical way. We never want to do things just out of our internal automatic playbook, because those are things that we're not really in control of. So we want to lock that away and hopefully with the right amount of time and practice, push it aside. So this is what I encourage you to do. If you're joining me and you'd like to take this seriously, then here are 2 exercises. The first one is to be very honest with yourself. What situations cause you to get triggered? It's not everything. Some parents I've spoken to, they don't care if a child is screaming and running around, but they get very upset when a child might fight with a sibling. Other parents get upset when a kid whines all day, but they don't care about another thing. So we all have to do a very honest, soul-searching exercise to think, what areas get me very nervous? When do I start feeling like I lose myself? And when I did this exercise, I found it very liberating because it helped me start solving the problems that I wanted to solve. And I'll give you one example where I felt that the list, figuring it out, really, really helped me. And that was what I call social pressure. I found myself to feel very lost when I'm in a public setting, whether it's a store, in a park, wherever it might be, and suddenly my child is acting out of line, acting out of control. And that is when I felt my switches being pressed, because you feel like the pressure of everyone around you. And if you don't say this, then you're going to be looked at as a bad parent and you have to act like this because that's what society expects. So mentally, I recognized that I have these auto switches when it comes to social pressure scenes. And I had to find a way, what I could tell myself to stay composed even under those settings. And I must tell you that, thank God, with the right amount of work, I see improvement. It's not perfect. But because I identified it, I'm able to utilize that moment of understanding within myself to practice composure in a proper way. The next thing, which is sometimes harder because it comes so easily to us, we don't realize how many times a day we say this. We need to practice switching from "you made me angry" to I am feeling angry, so I'm choosing to leave the room. I am feeling confused, so I'm choosing to do this. Or you are not following my directions, so I am choosing to turn off the video. That is much better and in a much more control than saying, you made me turn off the video machine. No child made you do that. You chose to do that based on what was going on. So I'm feeling X, Y, and Z, so I'm choosing to do X, Y, and Z. And try that at least once a day for a week. And you'll see how much better it sounds. And you'll see how much more confident you sound. And that helps the child respond better because, again, giving your children control is scary. It's dangerous. They don't know how to handle it. They don't want it. And finally, here, I'd like to present you with the STAR method. The STAR method is a program, if you want to call it that, because it is kind of a program. It's something I have to work on. A method that I put together to help parents, teachers, students, children remember how to react. And it's great. Do it with your children. Let your children know that you're showing composure. Let them know that you want to respond in a mature, responsible way. That's good. That's how they will learn to respond as well. It's not embarrassing. It's great. This is the way it should be. Going back to Adam, he wasn't bashful. He wasn't arrogant to say, no, you're wrong. He said, you're right. And he went and took the right steps. We need to be comfortable with our children to say, yes, this is what I'm doing because I'm trying to respond, react, and fix problems in a proper way. And the reason it's colorful like this, it's not exactly adult looking, is because I use this for children as well. On the top, you'll see it says for parents. But I use this method for children as well, and I like it to be the same. Because I think it's important that children realize that adults also need to work on themselves. It's not just us kids and adults are perfect. We're all working on ourselves. This is one of the principles of Hasidic philosophy, that we're all on a journey of self-improvement constantly, and we should never stop that journey. So let's have a look at the STAR. The STAR is the composure. So stop. The first thing you need to do is mentally pause, physically pause, emotionally pause. Do whatever you need to do to stop your natural impulse. You feel it coming. Again, by preparing yourself, when you know situations are coming, you'll be able to do the STAR a step ahead, which is great. So make an active effort to stop any natural impulse that you feel it's coming. Those buttons that would usually get pressed, the way your grandmother treated you, your teachers, your parents, anyone, your boss, don't allow those switches to get pressed. Stop. Take a deep breath. I find breathing, as many do, very, very practical. You can do it anywhere, anytime, and it works. Take 1 deep breath, 2 deep breaths, 3 deep breaths, as many as necessary. And it's great if your kids see it as well. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Then, internally, mentally, I ask myself, what is my goal? And we'll focus on this question later. What is my goal? What does my child need? And just to touch on it very briefly, sometimes we get caught up with the external factor. We get caught up with the mood and with the tantrum, instead of recognizing there's an issue that is triggering that mood. So by taking that breath, you're asking yourself, what do I want to do here right now? What does my child need? That will guide me to stay laser focused on my goal, which is crucial to reaching a good conclusion to any conflict or preventing a conflict, which is even better. And then finally, you're ready for the R. You're ready to react. You're ready to respond appropriately using some of the tools that we're going to learn about, any tools that you feel is necessary at the time. And sometimes we refrain. Sometimes we stay away from the situation because we recognize right now, I don't need to step in. Right now, my child is not in a place for me to step in. I need to think about this and I'll deal with it later. Right now, whatever I say is just going to turn it into a more difficult situation. And that really is a powerful step to any connecting parenting, because without it, you're automatically going away from goal-oriented to just natural impulse-oriented, and we don't want that. We want to change our focus, and it's not always easy. What I love about it is it's not all or nothing. Sometimes we'll succeed, and you can see my email address, and you can reach out to me, tell me your success story, share with me some concerns. I'd love to continue the conversation. And so sometimes we'll succeed, sometimes we will have a harder time, but The good news is our children are forgiving because they love us and we love them. And it's never too late to start. And we should never give up. And we should absolutely never, ever say, this is not for me because I am just this way. This is how I parent. We are all in full control of ourselves. And if we make that decision to improve it, to change it, to fix it, we can and will be successful. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. Wishing you all much success, health, and happiness, and enjoy this precious time together with your children. It's something that they will cherish, and remember always, make it count, make it something meaningful and enjoyable. Have a good evening.